Okay, hello, Dr. Murali. So nice of you to be on this interview with me on Mind Talks.
My pleasure, Ian.
I mean, having known you from school days, having played with you in school, and now we're sitting and talking some serious stuff about the mind, about leadership, success. I mean, we've come a long way.
We have.
So Murali, thanks for really coming on this nice interview with you. The purpose is more so that other people can understand something about leadership and success through your story. So I'll just ask a few questions, feel comfortable to answer it any way you feel like.
Sure.
Cool. Okay, for those of you who don't know Dr. Murali Mohan Baby, he is an MBBS, MD, MRCP. I mean, he's got a string of papers that he's published, including for the Lancet. And so he's one of the most prominent guys we know in the country today on respiratory disease. And this becomes a lot more relevant now with Corona in the background. Also, he's treated some superstars like Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, and he's been a regular doctor with her mom. So, I mean, he has the who's who probably of Bangalore consulting him, particularly in these pandemic times. So, Dr. Murali, anything that you'd like to say about yourself, or just give us a background about who you are, how you reached this elevated position as senior consultant of the Mazumdar-Shaw Hospital? Anything that you want to say? Anything.
About myself?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've actually said it all, Ian. We were classmates, so I'm an old Josephite. Some of the happiest years of my life. Went on to another very good college, the National College, Baswangudi, skipping the usual route that all Josephites take, which is going to St. Joseph's College, and then giving up St. John's Medical College to go into Bangalore Medical College. So I made a few odd choices that way, not following the regular stream. And I don't think I've regretted any of these because they've given me a larger view of life and, acquaintance with a larger variety of people, which is very important, both for a person and for a doctor. Then went off after a few years of teaching here. I went off to the United Kingdom, did my higher medical training there, became a pulmonologist there and came back and rejoined the old medical college where I was teaching earlier and spent 15 years in the medical college, which people ask me, why did you do that? But, if this opportunity comes up to talk about this later, I'll tell you why I did join this medical college and why I stayed there so many years. Again, a very, very productive phase of my life. Then, of course, I moved off into private medical practice and joined this wonderful institution called Narayan Hridayalaya, which later moved into both the Mazumdar-Shaw Medical Center, which is our specialties, all non-cardiac specialties. So it's been a good journey, not to forget an institution you're involved with, St. Martha's Hospital, which was one of the happiest years of my life. So some of the happiest years of my life have been spent, I think, growing, learning, but also in a very collegial, very friendly atmosphere, which I think is very, very important, no matter which field you're in. It's the team that you work with, which is so important. And these were great places to have teams.
Super. Now that you mentioned teams, Murali, you'll permit me to ask you a question on leadership. I'm sure people love you as a leader. I'm sure. I know you for that long. And you're such an affable guy, such a nice guy, down to earth. I mean, you reach there, but, when we talk, it's all like friends. And you don't keep an air about you like I'm this, superstar doctor. What makes you so affable? What makes you such a good leader?
I'm not too sure about that description, but yeah, it's nice, so I'll accept it. So it's difficult to say. I think one is born with certain qualities. I come from, my mother is one of the friendliest people I know, always out helping people.
Right.
She'd become a doctor. She would have been a great doctor. And incidentally, affability is one of the recognized things that patients look for in a doctor. They talk about three things that a good doctor needs to have. The first is availability. There's no point in being the greatest doctor if you're not available. The second is, of course, ability. You don't want a lousy doctor no matter how nice he is. But the third one is affability. So that's a very, very important characteristic of a good doctor. And that's something I keep telling my students. I don't know about, being a great leader, but I know my students like me very much as a teacher. And to me, that's a very, very important part of my being. Not only should I be a doctor, but I've always wanted to be a teacher. And I remember teaching from, the days when I was a senior housemanship, doing my senior housemanship in St. Martha's. I'm not sure the interns who were posted with us liked it very much, but I enjoyed the teaching I did. And one of the reasons I told you I moved into this medical college and stayed so long is not that it was financially good. It wasn't. It was, we were paid peanuts. But there were two things that happened. One is, of course, I enjoyed the teaching part of it. And one of the things you always know is when you teach, you learn much more. So I not only had to continue learning, so it's, even now my students tell me that I read more than them, I try and learn more than them. And you've got to be that, if you've got to take them along with you, you need to know at least as much as them, if not more. So teaching and learning simultaneously is what is very, very important to me. And I think that's a very important part of my life. And it's actually a very important part of being a doctor. Many people don't know that the word doctor actually comes from dottor in Italian, which means teacher. So doctor, by definition, has got to be a teacher. And that's something I enjoy thoroughly. So what makes me affable, I think, is predominantly genetics and growing up with wonderful people like you, Ian.
Oh, wow.
No, really, I think the atmosphere in school was such that, it was a very friendly atmosphere. Of course, every school has to have its bullies. It has to have, the tough ones. But again, I think it was a fantastic learning experience about how to get along with people.
Super. I mean, knowing you in school and all that, and now talking to you as one of the most renowned doctors is like a sea change. But more than anything else, Murali, I'd like to call out one or two things. So, number one, I feel you could have fitted into any field. It's just your niceness, your likability, your interest in people, your learning capability. Today they call that agile thinking. You should be able to change everything every time, and this pandemic has taught us a lot. So coming back to that part of it, your ability to switch or to be agile or nimble, give us one thing that you learned from the corona pandemic, and what we can, as general citizens of the country, what could we follow as just to prevent disease? Could you give us some insight into that?
Okay, the main learning from the pandemic for me has been how it accentuates people's characters. So the ones who are nice, who work with each other, and I think this is true of any crisis, war, for example, famine, for example. The nice ones get even nicer. They go out and help. We've had classmates who, sacrificed a lot to help others. The nasty ones see it as an opportunity to prosper, make money. Okay, so it just accentuates these things. And I think crises are very useful for that reason, to bring out what's best in people, unfortunately also to bring out what's worst in people. But I think it's also taught us that there are a lot more good people than nasty people in this world. People have really come out worldwide. It's not here. In fact, just yesterday, I was telling people on one of our WhatsApp groups that I'm an optimist. And to me, one of the nice things this pandemic has taught us is how fast we've learned about this virus. We haven't come out with definite cures. That's okay. We've learned a lot about this virus in a very short time. It's 7 months, really, since the pandemic spread. Maybe we're in the beginning of the 9th month, really. And we've not only learned a lot, we've learned to share a lot. There's been an amazing sharing of knowledge. There's been an amazing sharing of infrastructure. India sending PPE to the West, India sending hydroxychloroquine to the West, them sending things to us. So we are seeing the world as, a global village in the nicest possible way. It's shortened distances, it's brought people together, and it's made people work together. So that's, to me, the biggest learning of this pandemic. But from a health point of view, I think what we've learned is we need to live in a cleaner society. We need to live in a cleaner world. We need to respect nature as much as, we've tried to exploit nature. And we need to pay respect to the ordinary things, wear a mask, keep physical distances from others, do not pollute the atmosphere. Look at where we spit, the way we, dispose of garbage. I mean, one of the most hurtful things is the way masks are disposed of in public, giving little thought to the cleaners, the sanitary workers who clean this. And you'd be surprised, we talk about doctors and nurses suffering illness during this pandemic. Among the largest group who've suffered are the sanitation workers.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because they've been cleaning this, and so I think we need to look after them.
Yes.
During talks on COVID, especially to the lay public, I like to tell the story of this farmer who, always won the prize for having the best corn. And one of the things, I'm sure you know the story, I'm sure you've used it in your talks, is the way he used to distribute his seed corn to his neighbors. And when they asked him, why do you do this? They are your competitors. He said, their pollen is going to blow onto my field and my corn is going to become inferior. And that's something we've learned. We need to all develop together. We need to work together, and all of us need to grow together. And that's the only way we are going to grow individually. And I think that learning has percolated more and more in our country and in the world. So that's, to me, the biggest learning, not the science behind it, though the science has been fantastic. But I think the larger lessons that we've learned are what really the pandemic has taught us.
Brilliant. Doc, going back to, your choice of medicine, did you have any other choices when you chose your career? That's one question in the back of my mind. And if so, what was that choice, and why did medicine win over the other choice, in case there was?
So, if I had to do this over again, I would still choose medicine. I think that really in my mind, there was no other choice. My father was pushing me to join the IAS. He said, you ace these general knowledge quizzes. National College, we used to have a quiz, which is based on the IAS system. And the first year, my first pre-university, I got the second place, and the second pre-university, I got top place. He said, you should be going into the IAS. You'll help a lot more people. That's probably true. I think the administrators have a much greater role to play in changing the world.
That's true.
But you need to love what you do. And for me, administration was never a love. It's been medicine. It's been that close contact with people, the immediate, gratification that you get when somebody gets better. I don't think you see it in any other profession, honestly. You see the results in front of you within a day, sometimes within the course of an interview. You can see the person looking better, feeling better, and going out with a smile on his face or her face. So I don't think I really considered any other profession. But if I had to, if I wasn't allowed to choose medicine, I'd probably have become a writer, because that's been my second love. I love books.
Wow.
I enjoy writing, though I don't get the time to do that. So that's would have been my second profession.
I can see all the books behind you. So, that's proof of how much you
Unfortunately, read. I'm the reader, not the writer of these.
No, but I think you'd be a great writer as well. Even I see your posts on our classmates group, Murali, and you're always so articulate and so precise. And the kind of things that you share, fantastic. Even today, I was looking at the 2 posts that you sent out. Awesome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on a group. It's always good to learn from you.
Thank you so much.
Now, moving ahead, I'm thinking if we have to now make a plan for the future, 1 or 2 tips that you can give us from both your experience as a doctor, as a leader, if you can juxtapose that. And I know you're not so worried about success, because for you, success is doing what you love and, enjoying every moment of that. I think you're extremely successful in that regard, and among other things. Give us 2 tips, for how we can move ahead, looking ahead. What is Murali's advice?
So I think there are 2 very important things which I never planned in my life. For me, things have just fallen in place. I've been very lucky. I was the despair of my father, because he would love to plan ahead. He expected me to have a clear vision in my head of what I wanted to do. And I'm the king of procrastination. I just keep postponing things, doing things I love, but, without any very definite map for the future. So that's something I would advise people to avoid. I think it's good to have a map for the future. And I probably could have knocked 10 years off my progress path if I had done that. But you know what they say? They say it's not the destination, it's the journey. And I must say I've enjoyed every bit of the journey. So if I talk to young people, and I've done this a few times, and they come and ask me for career advice, I would say, first of all, choose something that you would enjoy doing for the rest of your life. And, I get up in the morning and I'm just excited at the thought of going to work or doing something connected with the profession every day. My chief, Dr. Devi Shetty, is like that. I mean, the man is passionate about his job. He just enjoys his job. He's working till 12:31 in the morning, up again at 5, doing his workout, and then straight away getting into it. If he talks about anything, it's in some way connected with the profession of medicine. He's an out-of-the-box thinker, but for him, it's not just about the straightforward surgery. It's also about other things, which to me are as important as the actual nitty-gritty of the surgery. So that's something, you have to enjoy doing it when you're 90. A few days ago, we lost Dr. Padmavati. She was the oldest cardiologist in the country, 103. And she was practicing till the day she died, or almost till the day she died, 103. She's been responsible for most of the early work in cardiology in this country. As postgraduates, we had to read her papers and cite from them. So, if she was getting up at night at 101, 102, 103 and going to work every day, that tells you the passion she had for her job.
Passion.
So that's the first thing. You must choose a vocation, a profession, a calling, what have you, that will interest you till the end of your life. So that to me is the single most important thing. As a country, what do we need to do? I think the most important thing is, I always say this, there's this lovely line from Shakespeare. You always go back to Shakespeare sometime or the other. Laertes is getting advice from his father Polonius, and it ends, he's given him a lot of advice. And at the end he says, and this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Words to that effect. I may not have got it right, but that's the most important. You've got to be true to yourself. And as a country, we've got to be true to ourselves. As institutions, we've got to be true to ourselves. And one of the most heartening things I've heard about the younger generation, and Ian, I'm sorry to say, I think as a generation, we mucked it up completely. We've messed up the world. We've messed up the environment.
That's true. Absolutely true.
And to see our children's generation, it's kind of heartening that they have a lot more than, becoming financially successful, driving companies to success and so on. I'm in a literary society in our residential area where I've got a house, and one of them was citing, he frequently interviews for jobs, and he says one of the things that's changed is young people are asking not what does your company offer me, but what does your company offer the environment? What does your company offer society? What is your corporate social responsibility? So those are very heartening things. And I think that's what, it's sad, but I think that's limited to an articulate, young, thinking group. We've got to spread that into the wider society, and we've got to get that lesson across to our industrial leaders of industry and our political leaders, even more importantly. We've got some great people, but I think that message has got to go out to them. We've got to learn from the young.
Absolutely good. And I just love the way you put things across. Murali, thank you so much. I have one question which is related to your line of work, respiratory disease. And what I find, Murali, today, and this is really shocking for me, is more and more people are getting addicted to things like, cigarette smoking or weed or whatever you call it. Any of the other substances. What could we do differently? Is there anything that we could do as a, earlier generation to try and prevent this, at least for, if not this generation, at least the future generations?
So there are a few key things that, I think one of the important things, again, looking to the younger generation, is worldwide and in India, actually tobacco use has come down a little. Absolute numbers have gone up, but the percentage of people using tobacco has come down. So some of the things we're already doing are actually succeeding. Some of these are on governmental level, where increasing taxes has worked, banning advertisements has worked, banning indirect advertising has worked. So those are the things that are being done already at a corporate level and at a governmental level. What we can do as individuals is get involved in more advocacy. and working with people to spread this message at a very young age. A lot of children who smoke are actually children of parents who smoke, so they've seen elders smoking, so they start. It's very dramatic. Elders are role models. Even the nastiest people are role models to their children. I mean, we are heroes to our children by and large. So I think it's very important to get this message across that you don't smoke. If you do smoke, don't smoke in front of your children.
Right.
And confess to them your weakness, saying this is not a good thing. What I'm smoking is because I'm too weak to give it up. Please don't start. It's difficult to give up. Okay. The third thing, of course, is to spread the message of the harm that tobacco can do. And I think most people already know that. It's not a matter of knowledge. Very few people have this idea that smoking doesn't harm you. They all know it harms you. They know that any form of addiction is harmful. And last of all, I think the important thing is to show them. So, my wife Pratima heads the de-addiction unit at NIMHANS. And together we've written a book on how to help people quit tobacco. It's a manual for doctors and dentists. And one of the things we ask them to do in this is, if people are already smoking, we tell them to make a kind of balance sheet. Things that are good from tobacco use for you, things that are bad from tobacco use for you. So you need to balance these two. Mm-hmm. And when you write down that list, you come out with a whole lot of things which are harmful. Just very few things. People think it helps their creativity. They think better when they take it, and it calms them down. And really what's happening is it's the loss of the nicotine that they've got used to that makes them jittery, and when they take it, it calms them down. It's not that nicotine truly has a calming or a stimulant effect on, their thinking and so on. So if they're very tense as people, there are other ways to handle this tension. They don't need cigarettes to help them. So that's the message. So on a countrywide level, on a society-wide level, and on an individual level, we need to work on all three. Because as you said, even if tobacco use is coming down, other addictions are on the rise. And among the most nasty are, obviously, social media addictions, getting addicted to the mobile phone and so on. Those are as nasty and as harmful as the other addictions.
Very, very bad addictions, yes. Even TV, gaming, these are some of the killers today.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that some other time. But Murali, I'm going to have one closing question for you. If there's one thing that you could change about the world, what would that
be? That's really a very, very difficult question, because for you to change anything, it's got to be within the realms of possibility. But I think that the thing that's most harmful to us as a society and as a country is the disparities that we are seeing. So if there was some way in which we could reduce the disparity, it's what I would focus on. And to start small, I'd say, one of the things that impressed me about the UK and Canada is their health systems. I think it is a far more socially just health system than we are seeing in India or that you see in the United States. Anybody can walk in and get cared for, whether he can afford it or not.
That's true.
And that's a debt I think we as a society owe to our poorest people. So if I had to change one thing, I'd bring in something like a national health service of either the UK or the Scandinavian countries or Canada to India. And if we had to sacrifice a lot of the other things that governments pay for, I think it would work.
Wow. That's brilliant. And I hope some politicians are going to hear this. Actually, we owe it to ourselves to make sure that, the powers that be start to listen to us a little bit more, particularly in times like this, because, I think the pandemic could have been, handled a lot better. But of course, in hindsight, we are always smarter. But overall, only a few things that I learned from you. Number one, humility is key. And, we keep talking about that in the corporate world, but here is a person like you who has walked that talk. Second thing, I believe you're an eternal learner, and, the reading of books and just the fluency with which you quote Shakespeare and all that also highlights that. Eternal learner, I think that's good. The third thing I think is, you made a nice comment about you should have a profession that you would, would be with you when you were 90 or 100 years old. And, the doctor who died at 103, working till the last day, I'm going to research her now. You guys know all this, but we guys have to learn about it. So I'm going to read up about that. That's something I'm looking at. How do you live beyond 100 and still keep that zest for life, that verve, that punch. And so this has been a very enlightening session, Murali, and I really thank you for it. I'm sure I'm going to have follow-up conversations with you, and particularly with Pratima. I think we have to do something more for the world, and that's where I'd like to collaborate with you in some level.
Looking forward to it, Ian.
Thanks, Murali. Thank you so much. And not only as a classmate, you've been a great guy. As a doctor, you've been iconic. But now I think with this interview, I got to know you so much better, I can't tell you. So I'm looking forward to having a nice cup of tea with you or a drink sometime, and we'll talk more.
Sadly, you and I don't drink, so.
Lemon juice.
It need not be an alcoholic drink.
Lemon juice with honey or something. I'm with
it. Yeah, Ian, it's been a pleasure. And let me tell you, you just bring zest to everyone's life. The humor you have, the new way you look at things, the way you can think out of the box. It's an absolute delight. Every conversation, every WhatsApp exchange with you has been remarkably good. So keep it up. And, I hope you can do this till the 1:30 you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. No, 1:30 is bare minimum. But yes, I'm going to take some tips from you on that. Murali, the world needs more of you. So thank you so much. And all the best to all the good work you're doing, sir.
Thank you so much.